Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so we'll do some learning this morning, but this is also sort of an advertisement. This is a shameless plug for an adult education class that will be starting next month. It will be on Chumash and specifically the book of Genesis, Sefer Vayeshev. This was actually inspired by a request from someone in the community that resonated with me. So if you have ideas about what you want to see in this community in terms of learning, please don't be shy about sharing your ideas. I won't be able to do everything that everyone would like to do, but I always appreciate learning with you and from you. And so I look forward to this class beginning. It'll be on Sundays in January at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it'll start next month. And also, the reason why I'm teaching this particular topic at this particular point in time was that, as some of you know, I taught 9th grade last year. And I taught the book of Genesis to 9th graders, and I learned so much from them and so much about this text of our Torah. And so learning from one's students and a relationship between teacher and students, that's a teaser for the end of our teaching this morning. Okay, so we're going to start book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 2. This is the beginning of the Parashat. This then is the line of Jacob. Okay. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended the flocks with his brothers. He was a young man, and he was a helper to the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought bad reports of them to their father. Okay, so we have a 17-year-old bringing bad reports of his brothers to their father. I think anyone who's ever had siblings knows that tattling never goes well. And even if you're an only child, you probably discovered that with your friends at some point. But also, because I did so much learning with my students last year, I became kind of aware of what's the dynamic with all of these different brothers. What is the big deal about him bringing bad reports of the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah? Well, if you remember last week's Parsha, and I think I spoke about it last week as well, there were essentially two different teams among these 12 sons. There was team Leah, and there was team everybody else. And so Leah, there were 6 sons from Leah, and the other 6 sons were from 3 different people, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. And so they all kind of had to band together. So Joseph is not just tattling, he's tattling on his own team. One would think that it's like, okay, not only do you want to have good relationships with your siblings, at least most of the time, why would you tattle on people on your own team? It seems kind of self-destructive. And so the theme of this particular moment in the behavior of Joseph is he really doing that? Is that actually happening? Okay, so let's learn a little bit more. Continuing the next sentence. Now Israel, who is Jacob, loved Joseph best of all his sons. He was his child of old age. Okay, so we have, what is this child of old age thing? Some commentators say that this means that Joseph was very wise. Some commentators go a little bit more factual and say Jacob was older when Joseph was born than his other sons were born, and that's what is making him a child of old age, but he was special. That is something that all the commentators agree on. And so Israel had Joseph made a special ornamented tunic, a coat of many colors. So not only was he the favorite, he wore something that was very, very colorful and loud so that no one could ever forget that he was the favorite son. Sentence 4, not that surprising, his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of his brothers. They hated him so much that they could not even speak a friendly word to him. So, favoritism, not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Withholding love causes hate. I think that's what we're supposed to learn from this particular selection from Torah. Love can be a finite resource. If we play favorites, saying you get more love than you for some reason, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a finite resource. But when we play favorites, that's how it ends up seeming. So this situation obviously is very unfortunate, but at least Rashi, one of our most well-known Torah commentators, has a sense of humor about it. He looks at the phrase, and they could not speak a friendly word to him, and Rashi comments as follows. From what is stated to their discredit, we may infer something to their credit. At least they didn't speak one thing with their mouth, having another quite different thing in their hearts. So they weren't nice to him, but at least they were honest. Now, one would think especially because Joseph ends up being a successful guy. At this point in his life, he would be aware that something is afoot and adjust his behavior. However, that is not the case. Once Joseph had a dream which he told to his brothers, and they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field, when suddenly my sheaf stood up and remained upright. Then your sheaves gathered around and bowed low to my sheaf." His brothers answered completely reasonably, "Do you mean to reign over us? Do you mean to rule over us?" Also, all the other brothers were older. So they're like, what is this young guy doing? They hated him even more for his talk about his dreams. Okay. Now, again, one would think Joseph would notice that his brothers are not really having a good time with this and adjust his behavior. Again, not so much. We continue in verse 9. Joseph dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, "Look, I've had another dream. Now this time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." But this time, he didn't just tell it to his brothers, he also told it to his father. And when he told it to his father and brothers, his father berated him. "What," his father said to him, "is this dream you've dreamed? Are we to come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow low to you to the ground? Is this really what you expect?" Now, we have a couple of comments on this, and this was something that I didn't actually notice until I was learning it this year in preparation to teach this morning. So Rashi observes that his father rebuked him because he was arousing hatred against himself by relating the dream. Joseph may be the favorite, but Jacob can see that his behavior is problematic, and he rebukes Joseph, but also he protects him a little bit. Rashi continues in comments that Jacob's intention in pointing out the absurdity of Joseph's mother bowing down to him is that Joseph's mother, Rachel, isn't alive anymore. I know. So the idea of his mother bowing down to him, and she's dead, she can't bow down to him, and that's obviously something hurtful to point out, that your mother is dead. But the reason why, Rashi says, Jacob did this was to make his favorite son hurt a little bit and make all his other sons feel a little bit better about it. So the other sons who feel a little bit better about it, seeing their brother get hurt a little bit by their father, was to make his sons forget the whole matter so that they should not envy him. On this account, he said to them that what he said, and the fulfillment of this dream is impossible, just like it's impossible for your mother to come back to life. So, unfortunately, Joseph's strategy doesn't work. We can read in the next sentence, his brothers were wrought up in him, and his father kept the matter in mind. Okay, so Joseph tells these two dreams. His brothers are upset, but after the second dream, his father is like thinking about this. He keeps the matter in mind. What does this really mean? Okay, so now we have another commentator that I don't often teach this morning, or on Shabbat morning, Sforno. He's another well-known commentator, and he brings a comment that leads us into a Talmud grand finale to the teaching. And if you've learned with me before, you always know I appreciate anything from the Talmud, so here's Sforno to close us out this morning. Okay, Jacob remembered it because he thought the dream reflected what would in fact occur. He sees this dream of the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down, and he thinks, this is ridiculous on the one hand, but it might happen on the other hand. In fact, Sforno continues, his father was looking forward to the fulfillment of Joseph's dream. He was like, when this happens, it's going to be a great thing. Now this reflects, says Sforno, the statement in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 105, for those taking notes, that a person may be jealous of everyone except his students and his children. A person can feel jealousy towards anyone except for their students and their children. The Talmud notes on page 105b of Sanhedrin, Rabbi Yossi Bar Choni says, a person is jealous of everyone except for his son and his student, since their successes reflect well upon him. That's why he celebrates their success. Okay, so I guess it's great that Jacob isn't jealous of his son. He's celebrating his son's success, but a person can be jealous of everyone except for their son and their student. So that means that colleagues can be jealous of one another, friends can be jealous of one another, and brothers can be jealous of one another. I see this as a caution to parents and teachers, who can celebrate the success of their children, of their students. It's so easy for jealousy to prevail, not just among siblings, but also in classrooms. So for those of us who are parents, for those of us who are teachers, I think that's most or all of us in this room, this teaching is a remember that we shouldn't play favorites. When we can, we should remember to teach not just the material or the life lessons that we're trying to teach, but also how to be good friends, how to be good colleagues, how to be good siblings. Maybe your child or student is really as awesome, as magical as Joseph. Maybe that makes their behavior irrelevant because we all know sometimes successful people can get away with a little bit more than everybody else. But even if they are, Joseph still wasn't perfect. He might have been a better guy if he were more of a mensch. And that's why it's important to teach all our children, to teach all our students to be not just good at what they do, but good in who they are, to behave like the mensches that they can be. Shabbat Shalom.